What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Bettin N Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Roscoe, and we are back after a long hiatus of Saratoga Springs, New York. Ton of fun. I really appreciate everyone we met out there. Everybody, all the friends that came out there. It was an absolutely fantastic time, as it is every single year, and I'll give shout-outs as we go throughout the show, and all the birthday wishes that you guys send me on Saturday, I believe? No, Sunday. I don't even know what day it is anymore. Sunday, which is my birthday. Thank you guys all so much for all the birthday wishes and everything you guys sent me. I really, really do appreciate it. But guys, the work does not stop as we are covering a really nice and fun card at Saratoga this Saturday for Alabama Stakes Day. It's a grade 1. And it's a matchup of the matchups in the 3-year-old filly division between Good Cheer, Nitrogen, and Lucara. So absolutely fantastic race, and sandwiched right in between this Late Pick5 sequence we're going to talk about tonight. Welcome in, everyone. Thank you guys all so much for joining the show. I greatly appreciate it. If you guys do enjoy the podcast, please go down below the video player here on YouTube, hit the like button, and hit the subscribe button. We greatly appreciate it because not only is it completely free to do and the best way to support our channel, it also pushes these podcasts and others here on the HHH Racing Podcast out into the YouTube algorithm to hopefully bring like-minded horse players to the HHH Racing Podcast. And of course, for that, we thank you. As you can see scrolling in the bottom of the screen, you'll see our weekly podcast schedule every single Wednesday right here with Bettin N Boozin at 8 p.m. Eastern with myself, Charlie, and Patrick. And of course, every Thursday we have 2 shows. Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern with Howard, Pete, and Paul, Picks and Ponies. And then every single Thursday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern with Noah, Ryan, and Jackson talking about Saturday's Del Mar Late Pick5, which the Del Mar Oaks, I believe, just came out, and that's a fantastic race. And you might see a little bit of a guest appearance from yours truly tomorrow night on Pacific Horseplayers. So don't want to miss that show, as Del Mar has a great card coming up on Saturday. Of course, every single podcast we post here to the YouTube channel is also posted in audio form, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. So please go rate, review, and subscribe over to those if you're more of an audio listener. We also have TikTok and Instagram. And thank you guys all for the support that we got on our TikTok and both Instagram, but mainly TikTok over the last week. One of my videos that I posted up there is over 10,000 views already and almost 400 likes, I believe, at this point. So greatly appreciate all the support that everyone showed over there. If you guys are interested in more short form horse racing content, please go follow us at Bettin N Boozin Podcast over on TikTok and Instagram. And of course, our Patreon guys. If you guys were subscribed to the Patreon last week, you definitely absolutely crushed your bets last weekend. You can see on the bottom of the screen, $2.11 ROI since February of 2021, and that's 907 total price plays and spot plays we've given out. We're still well above the positive mark. It's only $4.99 a weekend as well, all done through Patreon, patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast. Just a couple stats for you on the past weekend. We gave out 6 horses on our power picks for last weekend. 4 of the 6 of those won, and this is not including the exactas and trifectas that were included with those horses that didn't win. We had a $6.28 ROI. Again, that's not including any exactas or trifectas that we gave out on there. If you guys do not subscribe, you guys are missing out, and they really, really do pay for themselves considering they're only $5 per weekend. Patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast for those. The link is also in the description if you can see, and if you want to see previous editions of these power picks before you buy them, or you just want to learn more about our podcast, HHHRacingPodcast.com is the place to do so. I see a bunch of people are already here in the chat. Greatly appreciate it. If you guys are watching live here on YouTube, please go down to the bottom right-hand side of the screen for the live chat, please. If you guys have looked at these races already, comment your picks, best bets, or just as we go through, if you have a question or a comment, please post it in the live chat. We do read everyone. And if you're watching this as a replay, post your best bet or best picks in the comments section below. Guys, let's get right into the handicapping, which starts on race number 8 at Saratoga on Saturday. But of course, for that, need to bring on my co-hosts from the East Coast of New Jersey, Patrick Kunstler, and of course from Chicago, area and soon to be law school student, my good friend Charlie Freeman. Gentlemen, what's going on?
Nothing much, guys. How we doing?
How we doing?
There's the Pat. There's the Pat accent coming out.
The Joyzy's coming out, of course. There's enough you rad mud of, there's a bunch of that this weekend that's my favorite thing to give Pat crap about when we're talking. He's just talking, and then all of a sudden, like, they went and got his bagels from, of course, being in New York, New Jersey. You got to have some nice bagels. But
you said you liked them. Don't
they
rap.
were they were fantastic. But the bagels, they're fantastic. All that shit. It's fantastic though. But again, I wanted to give a quick shout out to everyone that birthday, but special shout out to Sylvain, who's one of our longest supporters here on the podcast. He gave me these fantastic beer glasses, which will be, of course, used tonight. As we got a bet, but we also have to do a little bit of boozing. So there's only one beer that goes in there, which is the Nectar of the Gods.
Hey, Kyle, I thought you said we were going to go sober for the week after the amount of beers we had in Saratoga.
Who the fuck? Who said that? Come on. Are you kidding me? This is Bettin N Boozin, my friend, and that's a crap pour. I wasn't looking, so we're not going to show that on screen until a little bit. But, guys, let's get right into the chat. Of course, Matt Miller said bagels are solid. See, there you go. That's what it's all about. Katie, of course, was here very early. Colin Quinn, my friend, you better have hit Trotters for beers last weekend. Oh, gentlemen, I wanted to get to Trotters. We had so much. I messaged you on Twitter, of course. Trotters will be on the docket next year for sure as we go back. And I hope to see you there as well, because if we're getting beers, I better see you there as well. And John Judge says, roll Tide. Don't know if I can agree with that one, my friend, but John Judge, welcome to the show, man. Always appreciate it. Guys, let's get right into this. Let's not waste anyone's time. It starts in race number 8, the Late Pick5 we're going to talk about on Saturday. Allowance optional, 45,000. 100,000 is the purse going out of the Wilson chute at a mile for New York breds, and it's the field of 9 as I show it on the screen right now. The morning line favorite is the number 3. Get a job for Irad Ortiz and Steve Asmussen at 7-2. Second choice, the number 7 aggregation, Manny Franco and Chad Brown at 4-1, and your third choice is the number 4. Oh, God, my Italian ancestors are going to kill me for this one, so I got to make sure I say it right. But anyway, 9-2 is the 4 on the morning
Cicciobello.
Cicciobello. That sounds about right. I think it's Cicciobello. I think it's Cicciobello. I think you're right in that regard. I had to get it right, otherwise, again,
Where's Italian Pete Visco and his posse?
I know. Like I said, my Italian ancestors would have killed me if I would have just said that outright and got it wrong. I'm going with the number 3, Get a Jab. Pat's going with the number 4, Cicciobello, and Charlie's going with the number 8, Crimson Light for Pletcher and Saez. You know what? Since Charlie, you got the longest shot on the board, I'll let you go first, or at least out of all of us. Of course, number 8, Crimson Light, is a horse that's very lightly raced, and it's one that Pat and I have nowhere in the top 3. So would love to hear what you like most about the number 8, Crimson Light.
Yeah, honestly, I was just looking for upside here. I feel like a lot of these are older horses. They're in for the claim. We've kind of seen what they can do, and I don't really think any of them have any sort of recent numbers. Obviously, if you look towards the past, obviously they have some numbers when they were younger that are maybe harder for this one to compete with. With a lot of the recent forms, like I know the favorite in here ran like a 77 or 78, I believe. And also a lot of them were coming out of the same race. I just wanted a fresh face, a younger horse, a lightly raced horse. I know it is off a little bit of a layoff. Obviously, this horse was well meant for Todd Pletcher. The debut is one of the wildest replays I've ever watched. This one hit the gate and was completely, you don't even see the horse the entire time, and then just got up and then came back to win again. And then last time, obviously trying a mile for the first time, didn't get the job done. But I like that Louis aboard. I think this one will be in a nice spot. I just think the 8 is more upside than anyone in this field. And for some of these older horses that are maybe on the decline, I just can't trust any of them. And I'm getting a better price even than I thought, because obviously when you sent them, we didn't have morning lines.
Yeah, which, of course, I can put those back up there. As you guys all know, I don't handicap with morning lines. Always like to add them afterwards. And, Charlie, you are getting that 6-1 on this horse. Pat, this was a horse that had a huge amount of buzz on him because of that debut where he was absolutely nowhere and came flying late. Then he brought him back after over a year, won really nicely, and then came back last time, was just not good at all. And the problem is that drawing outside in this Wilson chute has been an absolute death sentence for a lot of horses. So even though you're getting the price to find out, having horses outside of the 7-hole in the Wilson Chute is hard to have on top.
Yeah, the 8 and the 9, Cut the Cord, were two horses that I looked extensively at. But just from looking at their time form numbers, I do have the 9 and third, but just the 8, I just the horse is just not. I don't know. It's just the price that we're going to get. I think this horse will be bet down, and the races that he's run at the race that he ran at this distance, just not for me.
And you'd also imagine from outside gate in the Wilson Chute, he has to go. And he's got two horses to the inside that really want to go. The problem, I don't think the 3 is going to be up there, because I thought the 3 actually ran a really nice race 2-back while rating at Lone Star. Obviously, different type of competition here other than Lone Star. But if the 7 and the 8 go, I'd still be. That's the only reason why I have this 3 on top, is just because even though he's slow, again, 7-2 is definitely not a price I'd want. I tried to look at so many different prices in this race. There's just probably not a single horse in this race that stood out to me. I don't know about you guys. And again, obviously someone has to win this race, but there's just nobody. And Get a Job's 2 for 2 at Saratoga. Last time out at this exact, it was off the turf, but at this exact level and configuration, he won very convincingly and should set up and get a really nice trip. Again, would I be racing to bet this horse or anyone else in this race at 7-2 odds? No, I would not at all. But again, someone has to win this race. You get IRAD aboard, should set a really nice trip, Charlie, and be able to go by at the top of the stretch just like he did last time.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. That's why I have him somewhere in the mix. I wanted to put him higher, but then I had a feeling once this always asked me, saying IRAD, this horse might be too short of a price for me. Yeah, I think this race is tough. Again, I was just looking for upside, and I just feel like a lot of these also, I know it noted a fast pace, but it's kind of a weird one because I don't really see any true speed horses in here, but I also don't really see any true closers outside of, I guess you could argue the one all the way to the rail is a little bit of a closer, and that was one I definitely gave a look to, and looking back, maybe would have liked to. Now that I'm seeing 6-1, would have liked to make somewhere in the money. But that was part of how I ended up with the 8 and 7 on top, is I just didn't really see anyone truly closing. I thought the two of them would be close up enough and maybe could set reasonable enough fractions on the lead together that one of them gets it done. Obviously, with the 7 is a little bit of a disappointing one. Last time out for Chad, hasn't been seen in a while. Is 6 now and 20. Obviously, you look at some of that form in late 23 and early 24, and I mean, this is obviously by far and away the horse to beat. And I think is another one that maybe this is why you guys didn't have this one, because of the connections will likely be over bet. I wouldn't even be surprised if this one goes off as the favorite. I'm just sort of banking on that Chad based off of, the work tab and putting in this spot that maybe, Chad has found the right spot to bring him back into. And again, I'm just kind of banking on this, maybe the 7 and 8, because they both have to go, maybe getting to the front and setting reasonable enough fractions that they don't take each other out. But obviously if they do, that could make me look pretty bad in this race.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, Charlie, I don't mean it's going to sound like I'm completely poo-pooing everything you said for these first two horses, but Pat, you don't have this horse anywhere either. This screams to me. Granted, he's probably out of a lot of his conditions, but this will be a 16-month layoff for this horse, and we saw it earlier. With the 20-something month layoff that Chad won with earlier in the meet.
Wasn't there like a 900-day layoff or something like that?
That's exactly the horse I'm talking about.
Yeah,
but ran for 62 last time. A little disappointing, like Charlie said. Hasn't been seen in almost a year and a half. And now he's put back in for a lower claim than this horse has ever ran for. It just seems like one of those really weird spots that it almost just seems like Chad's not necessarily dumping this horse, but putting him where he's probably capable of winning. But again, off the layoff, short price, and in for the claim, there's a lot of red flags here right now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't need to reiterate too much on that. Now, you can make the case. I think, Charlie could argue too, when you drop somebody in for the claim at Saratoga, it's a little bit different, obviously, from perspectives of wanting to win more. But
$100,000 purse ain't bad. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I can't get behind a horse with as many negatives as there is positive. Now, if he gets back to some numbers that he ran in 23 in the wintertime there, oh my gosh. I mean, this horse is a cinch, I would think, right?
Yeah.
But that's where, Kyle, I'm just going to go right into Ciccio Bello really quick. Listen, please. The horse last time, didn't run a step in there. Got to the far turn and started to make a move on the inside. And then when they got into the stretch, angled out and had absolutely nothing. I don't know what to make of that. But I just think kind of the class might prevail for him in here. I'm hoping age is not a factor anymore, but it could be. But I really thought, that New York Stallion Series race was pretty impressive. Now that is going a ways back, and this is going to be second off a layoff. So horse has been working very well. I'm going to take a shot. I think you get a decent price on him in here, but there are, like many of them in here, you do have to question some things, and has not been bet in his last 3 races, as you can tell.
Yeah, and obviously those have all been, the New York Stallion Series, the stakes races for New York breds. But again, this is another one that's been running in these races, and now he's dropped in for 45 again. Ricardo Santana, by the way, I just want to put it, he's been riding fantastic out at Saratoga. He's been kind of that breakout rider. Obviously, Ricardo's been around the block for a long time now, but still, this is a very nice meet for him. And he's going to have another live one here in Ciccio Bella. It's just a matter of, again, like, why is he in for this 45 now? Again, I understand he's, out of conditions. He also really hasn't run that well out of this Wilson shoot. Both times he has been on the favorable inside. There's a lot of, you can nitpick a lot of different holes and a lot of different horses in this race. But the 4, Ciccio Bella, was the other one I really didn't have any liking towards in that one. But the 1 was a horse, Pat, that I thought was really interesting. Getting to the inside, should set a really favorable trip, if not next to the 3, right behind the 3. And if he's good enough based on those last 2 races, I understand DePaz hasn't had the best meet, and Luis Rivera definitely hasn't had a meet to his liking. However, there's no reason why this horse can't at least catch a piece at a nice middling price.
Yeah, this horse has definitely taken a step forward in his 4-year-old year. I know early on, he really wasn't running that great, but since then, getting into the spring and now into the summertime, you've seen a steady progression. And this horse has been betting every race that he's running at this level. So I think this horse sits right in the thick of things. We just wonder if this horse is going to appreciate, this distance.
Yep.
Sorry, I should say this configuration from the rail. It's different. There's definitely, this is the inside post. I mean, we watched it on Sunday when we were watching the first race with Junior Chillax. You could tell that Chillax was very awkward when you come around that first bend there. So I'm hoping Palace Boss gets a decent trip with Luis Rivera. But Kyle, I like this horse a lot too.
Yeah, and I always joke it's one of my favorite views in racing, yet it's one of my least favorite configurations to bet, because I posted a video from when we were standing there, Pat. It's very quick to that first turn, especially from the inside gates. Obviously, they're favorable because you're not going to be wide on that first turn as horses in the 7, 8, and 9 post will. Obviously, very generally speaking, but Palace, I mean, he's going to have to work out a trip, but if he sits a pocket trip somewhere in the middle, I think he will have a very nice trip around the track, which could end up being a nice win at 6-1. Guys, we'll move on to the next race here. I'm going 3-1-6. Pat's going 4-1-9. Charlie's going 8-7-3. Guys, moving on to race number 9. It's the first of 2 stakes racing on the card, and it's everybody's favorite configuration, ladies and gentlemen. Give it up for everybody's favorite configuration. Is the 5.5 furlong turf sprint of the Skidmore Stakes, and I'll bring it up on the screen right now. Purse of $150,000. Again, 5.5 on the turf. 2-year-olds are running here, with the morning line favorite being the number 2 Sandals Song, the Ascot runner for Irad Ortiz and George Weaver at 2-1. Second choice being the number 8 Spirit of New York, Jose Ortiz for Adam Rice at 7-2. And your third choice is the Wesley Ward first-time starter Schwarzenegger, of course, named for the Terminator, at 4-1 on the morning line. However, Pat, there is some intel on Schwarzenegger that I know that you wanted to bring up here as I bring up our picks on the screen. It's going to make one person on the screen very unhappy.
According to, I saw it on X this afternoon. Obviously, the horse is entered in tomorrow's card. I believe it's the 6th race. which is a maiden special weight race. Schwarzenegger is entered in there, and trainer Wesley Ward said if the weather if it's a fast and firm on the turf, they will run Schwarzenegger in that spot to break his maiden. And God knows what his odds will be in that spot. But if not, he'll run on Saturday, which would be awesome. I mean, this horse was the talk of the town and still is the talk of, one of those 2-year-olds that everybody wants to see debut.
Yep, man, that bids very well for you, Charlie, huh?
Yeah, I mean, look, I like Sandal Song. I have a very strong connection with that horse, actually. But I think this one horse is a serious monster, and we talk about this with Wesley Ward horses. If you see them cranked up in the works, then you know they're legit. And if you see they're not, you know it's probably just going to be a takeout reducer. And this is being as unbiased as I can. I mean, we'll get to best bets later, but hearing the news from Pat a minute before we went live was just really good timing for me to give Kyle enough notice to switch everything now. But yeah, I think this one horse is going to be a serious animal. And if he runs here, I think we have a serious showdown between two of what I think will be some of the better sprinters in the country in the 1 and the 2. But I think obviously if the 1 does scratch and runs tomorrow and goes off, at 2 to 5 and wins by the length of the stretch, I can't exactly blame Wesley. It just kind of takes away from a fun matchup. But yeah, I like the breed on this horse. Obviously, they paid a pretty penny. The workout tab is just outrageous. I think he would be based off of how the 2's been running, it seems like it would take a pretty special animal to beat Sandal's Song, but I think the 1 can be that animal if he stays in here.
Well, Pat said he's been the talk of the town on the Oklahoma. Obviously, you see the turf workouts, they speak for themselves. Not This Time also wins. We all know how good Wesley Ward is with his 2-year-olds.
I like that shout, Pat, by the way. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. But Not This Time also wins at 18% with his 2-year-old first-time starters. So everything, all the numbers seem to point very well to the number 1, Schwarzenegger, the Terminator. Hopefully he runs in this spot, and if he doesn't, obviously, then this will change the odds, not only the odds, but the race as a whole. Pat, you and I both have the number 2, Sandal Song, who honestly was very impressive in the Royal Palm Juvenile that I'll show on the screen. Obviously, pretty sure we covered that card too, as well, and a lot of people liked Squire in this race, who was 4 to 5, but this was, albeit with a perfect trip, this was a very impressive effort for Sandal Song, and then he ran really well at Ascot too.
Yeah, he did. The horse ran very respectably. I mean, we've covered this Royal Palm. I forget the name of
the juvenile.
Yeah, the juvenile. We've covered this a lot. This is our annual, so it's nice to circle back on it. But no, Sandal Song, I really like this horse a lot, and George Weaver has put this horse in spots that with intent that makes you believe that he thinks this horse is just going to get better and better as the year goes on. And I think with IRAD hopping aboard here, guys, this is all systems go. And this horse is another one who obviously has been very flashy in the mornings. And I think for the price tag, $75K, this horse, it's cool to see. Obviously, I think Wathan Racing bought this horse when he went out to Royal Ascot. So there's a lot here that I think this horse is just going to get better.
Yeah, and George Weaver has been lights out, especially with these 2-year-olds this year at Saratoga. So Sandal Song is definitely one. And the thing I like about him, Pat, is that he showed the ability to sit first time out, especially at those flat 5s, those Royal Palm Juvenile races. They have the tendency to be very, very fast. So the fact that he was able to rate and go by with Luca Panici aboard, everything said go. And if you look at these Ascot notes, they're in the time form section. You can see he got an 86, which is actually pretty respectable 2-year-old wise this early in the meet. And the time form notes, they gave an excellent account 6 weeks on from debut on home soil, moving comfortably and well at home at this level, prominent, traveled fluently, every chance entering the final furlong, 1 pace, however, likely to progress further. And with those Ascot races, they really do take very detailed notes. So Sandal Song coming back to the States has been also working lights out on the Oklahoma training course on the turf. So this, and being that they got a little bit of rain today, Charlie, they got, what did Jim Pilar say? Said Saratoga had over a half an inch of rain a couple hours ago. Granted, they haven't had much rain at all over the past week and a half, 2 weeks. Pat can obviously say something to that, but so we'll see what happens when they go. Maybe the turf course just needed it. Probably it could still be firm tomorrow. All of us have the same top 3. There's a bunch of others in here that make a ton of sense.
Yeah,
Monster ran huge.
I would say I could touch on Monster real quick, and I did want to add, just as the Gulfstream guy, something on Sandals song. But first on Monster, yeah, that debut you have to go watch. I mean, this one has had an interesting career. Obviously ran against Pinky Finger, the really nice Wesley Ward horse, twice and got destroyed, but that's nothing really to be ashamed about because that's what Pinky Finger was doing to everybody on the dirt. And then admittedly, ran at Gulfstream in the summer. And while you may think, oh, May 23rd, it's not that much later than the Royal Palm, surely it was running against some nice horses. Brutally honest, Monster didn't really beat much. That being said, this horse, I know it only gives a 94 early time for him, but I encourage people to watch the replay because I think this one could be the fastest in the field. Now, I don't think he's going to get the 5.5, but this one will, I think, get the lead regardless of who enters because it's Louis. And the way this horse broke at Gulfstream was just outrageous. Just shot out of a cannon and flew. Again, I mean, you look at the fractions. I know it's Gulfstream, but still, like under 21, a little over 43 flat. This one's definitely fast. I just don't think he's as classy. And then the only other thing I want to touch on the 2 real quick before I'll let you two talk on the 8 extensively. I really like this horse. I know you said a dream trip, Kyle, and I don't entirely disagree. But if you watch the replay, as they're getting towards the back turn, not only was he rating, but he was so professional where the space wasn't there on the rail. So Panici had to angle him outside and take him 3 wide, and then he did it literally like nothing, which is usually really tough for a horse on debut. Also was on the rail, which is never ideal for a first-timer.
Yep.
And I know that Charles Darwin horse is a big-time horse overseas, so to run as well against him as he did, again, for me, especially if the 1 is out, this would become a single. I really do think – I know Pat said in the chat, like over under 1.5 horses we would see in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. I think the 1 and the 2 are horses that could easily end up in that race.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I agree with you, everything you said. The only other horse I want to talk about, and shout out to my good friend and man, Siggy Mendoza. Siggy says, taking Spirit of New York, price will be right, and we'll get a good trip. Tell you what, I mean, he was very impressive. That was against New York breds. This will be a little bit of a different, especially facing winners first time out. But, man, he was very impressive last time out. Adam Rice, Jose Ortiz hops aboard. Irad, of course, does end up hopping over to Sandals song, so that could be taken. But Jose is riding as good as he is and has been for the past, however long. Spirit of New York definitely can vie for this win, Pat.
Yeah, and this, he's a small. I know it's a turf sprint, so the horses seem to be smaller. But this horse, when I was watching the replays, visually pretty small, but really compact and just ran his heart out in that last race, coming from out of it. And I think it's cool the connections. They usually go to Chad Brown, but they're ended up sticking with Adam Rice here, and hopefully this horse can be a good one. You can make the case that this is the horse to beat, right, on figure wise. So yeah, listen, I think Spirit of New York stands a big shot from the outside and should get a nice stalking trip, Kyle.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Again, you guys know my view on turf sprints, everyone. So will my win bets be coming out of this race? Probably not. However,
hey, you did have a couple of winners over the weekend in the turf sprints.
Yeah, and I sent you that White Sox meme of that old lady after Paul Konerko hits the home run where he goes, I've waited 92 years for this day. Yeah, that's pretty close to what it is. But no, Spirit of New York ran fantastic. And if he improves off that last race, easily can vie for this win. It's really those 3. And we mentioned Monster. Tough Critic ran really well on debut while way out of it and then didn't run that well over at Ascot. But other than that, Bobrovsky's.
I think the 7's the wild card.
Yeah, then it's definitely the wild card.
He is very, very fast, but obviously we don't know what he does on turf.
And he ran 6 last time, and won by 10.5. So that's no issue at all. But if those 2 go out with, like he goes out with Monster, and if Schwarzenegger runs tomorrow instead of Saturday, Sandals Song or Spirit of New York should set a really nice trip and should be a very nice throwdown between those 2. And if the 1 does run in here, it should be a very interesting race between those 3. And Andre, okay, my friend, thanks for joining the show. We mentioned this at the start of the race, but any idea where he'll run tomorrow or Saturday? Patrick read something on Twitter today or X that said if it's fast and firm tomorrow, Wesley Ward will be running tomorrow. However, they did get a half an inch of rain today, even though they've had no rain there for the past 2 weeks. So we'll see how.
It's pretty quick too. It wasn't that,
Yeah. So we'll see how the course fans out tomorrow. Obviously, keep an eye on the entries tomorrow to see whether Schwarzenegger runs tomorrow or he'll be running on Saturday. I'm going 2-1-8. Pat's going 2-8-1. Charlie's going 1-2-8. Gentlemen, it is time for the feature on the entire card. It is the Grade 1 Alabama Stakes presented by Keeneland Sales. Again, grade 1, going 1.25 miles, the classic distance, 600,000 for 3-year-old fillies. And it's a big matchup between the number 2, Good Cheer, number 4, Nitrogen, and the number 6, Lucara. Those are your 3 lowest choices, and everyone else is pretty high, at least high single digits. And 2 of us, I already flashed it on the screen. I wanted to play a game and see who went with who. Too bad I put it up on the screen already and ruined it for everybody, guys. This is going to be a fantastic throwdown between at least 2 of these horses, if not 3 of them. 2 of us are going with the Turf Filly Nitrogen. Charlie, you are going with the Kentucky Oaks winner in the number 2, Good Cheer. The only blemish on her card is the one last time was at Saratoga, however, was in the slop. Lots of different things, interesting pace scenarios and stuff like that in this race. But look, if Good Cheer continues to run her races, she could be pretty tough in here.
Yeah, and look, this is one that I had hesitance against in the Acorn. Obviously, I ended up going with her in the Oaks because I didn't want to get cute, but then I kind of and I think a lot of people sort of felt like there was a chance the Acorn might be the day to beat her, and they were right. Obviously, I think, and I'm a little surprised to see so much support from Nitrogen. I was almost expecting you both to maybe go with Lucara or something like that because of the setup that we're seeing here. For me, the reason I ended up on Good Cheer, a couple reasons. One of the main ones being that I just don't necessarily know if I like this distance for Lucara or Nitrogen. I'm not sure if they want to go this far, whereas I feel pretty confident that Good Cheer wants every bit of this distance. And while I understand she's obviously going to have to run them down, I'm willing to, draw, a line through that last race. I just think she had an off day. Now, I'm not saying, she's going to win every race of her career outside of that one race or that she's consistently going to put up those numbers, but I do think she can bounce back to that form. And I also just feel like with Louis, and if you see some of her races in the past, really every race outside of the Oaks, where they just went so absurdly fast that she had to be a true closer, she's done a pretty decent job of setting more of a stalking trip. So I just feel like she's going to want the distance. She gets a reset. I like that Brad puts her back in a spot like this as well, because it shows me that he feels that was more of a fluke performance rather than maybe something truly is wrong or that she's not that horse, and that she hasn't already peaked. So I just trust that she's going to sit off and sit close enough that she'll be able to run them down.
Look, that can absolutely happen, and I agree with you completely. My question is if there is a slow enough pace, can she get there? And she has done it in the past, and obviously she's probably the best dirt filly we have in the country by far at 3 years old right now. The car has shown flashes, however, she's also run some pretty big duds. Pat, you and I, very based picks, by the way, very based picks. If she runs off the screen again, I'm going to be upset because I picked her last time. I forgot what race she was in when they entered her, and they ended up scratching her because
the American Oaks.
Thank you. It was the CCA Oaks that we also covered on the show. And I loved Lucara in that spot because I thought she'd get the exact setup that we show on Timeform here. The problem is, Pat, is there are different animals in this race than there were in the CCA Oaks, and arguably, or not arguably, way better animals in this race as opposed to the CCA Oaks. So she could get the setup. However, I feel like she's going to have a lot better horses breathing down her neck. Albeit, even if it's 2 lengths back, I still don't know if she's as good as the others in this race.
Yeah, and this is what makes this division so interesting, Kyle, is because, I'm looking the race in the same lens as you are, but the way I'm looking at it is I think that Good Cheer has kind of come back down to a level that's evened her out to others. And that's why I think this is just so interesting, this race with Nitrogen, now wanting to run on the dirt in this spot. Like, I don't know. Like, Lucara is the type of horse that just I never really was a fan of, but I do appreciate what she's done and the courageous, how courageous she's been on the lead. But Nitrogen, I think it's so fascinating that Cassie's always talked about getting her on the dirt and now finally does it in this spot. It's like, wow. The odds are like, I feel like with any of the 3 horses, the odds are you're going to have to just swallow it, right?
It's going to be 3 and then 3. Like there's no going to be in between in this race.
And that's what's going to be tough, guys, right? So listen, I'm going to take a chance with Nitrogen. I think Nitrogen's going to sit in second in this race and then just going to pounce on Lacara. But if Good Cheer takes a step forward after what I think may have, the Oaks may have taken something out of her, or that just crossed a line through the acorn, I don't know. There's so many possibilities going through my head, but I think Nitrogen's really interesting, and I'm going to put her on top.
That's why there's 6 horses in this race, Pat. And granted, there's really 3 horses in theory on paper that can vie for this win, and you can make cases for every single one of them. By the way, this race for Nitrogen's completely different, obviously, from the Wonder again, where she was against 3 horses, blah, blah, blah. But I love that Cassie takes this shot. The one question I agree with Charlie is the distance. That can't she get that 1.25 miles? Because last time when she ran at that 1 1/8 miles, she did end up getting beat. However, that was with a fast pace, she was up close. If you go to that race, she was the only one. Opulent Restraint finished 3rd. Opulent Restraint came back to run 3rd in the Saratoga Invitational behind a very impressive win from Laura Lynn that we saw this weekend. But I feel like if she lets good Lacara go past her, she's going to sit in front of Good Cheer. And while Good Cheer might be, it might just draw a line to that acorn, she's good enough. If she has to catch a horse like Nitrogen, and if Nitrogen gets that distance, it's going to be very, very hard to run a horse like this down. And the fact that Cassie puts her in here gives me the confidence. Medagliadoro out of an Uncle Mo mare, breeding just screams distance. We won't get paid, as Pat mentioned, and as we all see on the page, to find out. I don't think she'll end up being the favorite. I think Good Cheer will end up being the favorite, although I feel like it's going to be, David Aragona, we talk about how good he is. I feel like he pretty much hit it on the head.
Yeah, I don't think these lines are going to move much.
8-5, 9-5, 5-2, something in that range. Nitrogen should be second choice, and I'm willing to take the chance to find out with a horse that almost seems like she has so much untapped potential. And if she gets beat by Good Cheer in this race, this is almost like not a nothing to lose spot, but if you see, because she's a turf filly, right? Running in this race, they put her on the dirt, they try something. If Good Cheer beats her, they're like, okay, well, then we just put her back on the turf, and then she continues to win by 18 lengths and win for fun. So it is what it is at the end of the day, but I love that Cassie's taking this shot in here. And Pat, I love that you have this horse on top with me. The only other horse I want to talk about real quick is, Charlie, you have this horse in 3rd, Margie's Intention. Again, very light on numbers, but again, not having Lacara in there, understandable. She's ran some duds, ran some big ones, hoping that this is a dud and this horse can close up for 3rd at what will be almost guaranteed to be a nice price.
Yeah, well, for me, it's that, and also just quite honestly, in a field this short, I just don't want to go chalk if I think there's someone that has a chance. I do feel like the one thing I like about Margie's Intention outside, also, I do like that Irad's aboard, is just that I think this is one that's sort of been crying out for more distance. Obviously, Flavian got enough of a pace and timed up a perfect trip in the Black-Eyed Susan to get there, and then last time, got one of the worst rides we've ever seen from Luan Machado, on top of, to be fair, a bad pace in there, so never really had a chance. So I do like the distance setup for her. And again, like you said, the cars that consistent. I feel like the most important thing also that we haven't talked about. Now, I know they're not owned by the same ownership groups, but what I do find is fascinating is we also, I know you were saying there's 3 main contenders, but I would argue if you tiered them, I think Margie's Intention is better than the other 2 of the 3, is that we have 2 Brad Cox horses and 2 Mark Cassidy horses. Like, I feel like that's an important thing to talk about, especially also because, the 2 fastest in the race, as we were talking, Nitrogen and Lacara are both Cassie. So what does he do? Like, obviously we know Lacara is going to the lead, but does he, slow things down enough to help Lacara not set a crazy pace? But then maybe if that happens, she wires and it kind of hurts Nitrogen. Do they both kind of go? But if they go too fast, it works out for Brad Cox. Does he maybe make Margie's Intention has been going shorter, ensure that it's fast enough to help Good Cheer? Like, I just feel like there's some of these other dynamics where, yeah, it's a 6-horse field, but there's some of these other dynamics that make this race a little more complicated.
Go ahead, Pat.
Yeah, the only thing I would say to go against that theory, Charlie, is obviously the connections are different. It would be, I think it'd be more like if Godolphin put the horse that just comes to mind, that's Phillies Immersive. Obviously, they wouldn't if they put Immersive in the race as the rabbit to good cheer and say,
Right.
get to the lead, push Lacara, so we can. That's the only other thing. I can't really see that being too big of a factor. Like I think if anything, Nitrogen and Lacar is that could be an issue for Cassie, right?
That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. His
What does he do with
instructions have to be, pretty important to both of them, because that could be a problem.
Yeah, well,
Well,
considering
that's the only reason I was saying that's where I also think Margie's intention is interesting, because you look at, again, if we're talking about the tiers, I would argue, Brad Cox only has one horse really to fight with those other two, but he has Margie's intention, who is on the rail, and he could decide, with Irad, who's a pretty aggressive jockey out there, to go make things a little more difficult on them. And, if the three of them do go fast enough, that was just another angle I was at least looking at that I think is worth discussing.
No, and that's why this race is so fascinating, guys, is because we can have these discussions and all this stuff, and it's only a 6-horse field, and arguably
it feels
it's
like
only a
California
3-horse field.
Yeah.
So,
don't say that. That's not nice.
No, I didn't mean. I just mean like when you see a lot of Bafferts and.
I agree. I agree. I'm standing up for that other show that's on Thursday night.
Yeah. We got to. Hey, I saw a guy in the chat too who could stand up for himself as well, guys. I want to point out real quick though, is that again our power picks have been doing fantastic. If you weren't here last week, we were 4 for 6 on winners, $6.81 ROI, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Let me double check those numbers. 1 second. $6.28 ROI. My apologies. Ooh, so scary, unfortunately. But please, as I'm putting it up on the screen right now, it'll switch stuff off the screen, because again, this is what's used for picks and ponies. However, in the top right hand side of the screen, you see the QR code there. If you scan that, that'll take you to Patreon, patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast. For those that don't scan the QR code, they, again, only $4.99 a weekend, $21.60 a month, which is how Patreon bills it. And again, every single Saturday, you get 2 full tracks, price plays, spot plays, pick 5 grids, everything you need to crush your bets every single Saturday. We have you covered with the power picks, again, most affordable and one of the most profitable on YouTube. So again, scan that QR code in the top right, or go to patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast if that interests you. In the grade 1 Alabama, I'm going 4-6-2, along with Pat, who is based, going 4-6-2. Charlie's going 2-4-1. Guys, let's wrap up this pick 5, these last 2 races. You have us claimer on the inner turf, and then everyone's favorite configuration once again to close out the card. But again, race number 11, mile on the 16th on the inner turf, claiming 35,000, draws a field of 10s. I put it on the screen right now. You can see the morning line favorite is the number 1, Assertiveness, Luis Saez and Todd Pletcher at 2-1. Second choice, all the way outside, the number 10, Kid Creasa for Ricardo Santano Jr., aboard at 7-2. And the third choice being the number 5, Mogo for Linda Rice. Irad Ortiz hops aboard at 9-2. And bringing up our picks on the screen right now, you can see 2 of us are going with the number 2, Dakota Country, at 5-1. Pat, you are going with the morning line favorite, the number 1, Assertiveness. So I will let you go first. What'd you like most about race 11's morning line favorite?
Yeah, this was a tough one. I think that obviously Assertiveness has faced some horses that would be 1-9 in this spot. Has run in some pretty good races and was put in with intent after winning on debut in March at Gulfstream, beating Dublin's Night in there, and then goes right to obviously Keeneland and runs in a pretty nice allowance race. Now, 2 races now, and this horse is dropped in for the claim. Pletcher and those connections just want to get a win here. I think this horse is going to sit a nice stalking trip on the inside with Louis. Louis needs to start winning some races, though. That's been a problem. He needs to start winning, and I think he should get the right setup, right? I mean, I think the 10 horse from the outside's got to go, and there's a couple other in here that, their only way of winning, or have they won, is on the lead. So listen, Assertiveness, top time form wise sits right there with the 10. And I think should appreciate, getting the rail, and should get one run at it, from out of it. And obviously you do see there, Kyle, right? He sits in the second flight.
Yep.
I could see that, but I also could see there's a couple of the horses that, like I said, need to get the lead to win.
Yeah, and we'll talk about those too. Charlie, the one thing is that even though because I was immediately drawn to this horse just based on numbers alone, my problem is that while I think he's going to sit a nice pocket trip, he really hasn't passed anybody, and like he's ranged up and then kind of dropped back at the mile last time out. Now gets an extra 16th here. He's worked his way up and passed, but hasn't really finished down the lane. And if he's getting another 16th, that's the reason why I don't like him, at least on the top end.
No, and I think that's fair. I mean, I do think there's a lot to like, and I think the main thing for me is just that, but you could also argue as a red flag is he's getting significant class relief, in my opinion, not just obviously because it is claiming, but also you look at some of the names he's run against. And like that race we saw in McKeeneland, that was a pretty nice field, and he was a middling price there. Came back against Clock Tower in a shorter race and a stakes race that's pretty nice, and then a decent allowance at Monmouth. So it does get a lot of relief, gets Louis. I think he can save a lot of ground. But the main thing for me is just, like you said, I don't think he wants any extra distance. And I also think there's a lot of pace in this race, which kind of goes into, Kyle, the horses that you have in first and second, the horses that I have in first and third, where I think this sets up really nicely for the 2 and 7. I mean, there are a lot of horses that want to go. And on top of that, not just wanting to go, but like you said, Kyle, at least to me, there's a lot of horses where I don't think the one is the only one with that issue. I think there's a lot of them that don't want this extra 16th. Whereas I feel like a horse like Dakota Country wants every bit of this distance. He wants every bit of this pace setup. And what I think is a little interesting of him is, yes, obviously in the graphic it shows him as more of a true closer, but I think that just speaks more volume to the speed of this race. Because if you look at his form now, yes, obviously when he ran in that race going a mile and an eighth, he did kind of run more like a true closer. But you look at his race where he broke the maiden. You look at the race on June 14th of 24 on some of those other earlier races where he did sit more of a stalking trip. I just feel like Rosario will save all the ground. He's got, for better or worse, we know he's going to be super patient. And so I think Dakota Country will just let the race come to him. He'll want every bit of that extra 16th, and I think he's going to get the right setup and save a lot of ground. Yeah,
I mean, I agree with you completely, and I like the fact that he has set closer. The only thing, obviously, is he did that in State Bred Company. This is Open Company now for the second time, but last time he ran his best race, but also I thought he ran very good, and he got a sneaky bad trip in that race too. And obviously, Rosario tried everything he could to save as much ground, but had to weave through and stuff like that. But he ran really well. And the fact that we talk about this a lot, Charlie, is that even though he got the extra 16th, it's one of those things where, yes, he might need, based on this, he might need a little bit extra distance because he's closing, right? He's not getting there. That's not necessarily, that big. That's not necessarily true, considering that, his best closing kick might just be at that mile and a 16th distance where he ended up winning once and getting second by 5 to a nice State Bred horse in Rabaja. So I think Dakota Country could be really nice in this spot. And if he gets the pace in front of him, he's going to be running late. You know that for a fact. And I'm excited to get at least 5-1 on him, hopefully, in this race. But guys, we'll keep it moving forward. Charlie, I guess I'll keep talking to you, and Pat, I'll let you close out. The number 7, Landman Friday, is a horse I'm very interested in. This is, again, I'm going 1-2 Danny Gargan in here, which is one thing I don't usually do, but this is second off a little bit of a layoff here. Looks to set another very similar trip, and this is a nice drop for a horse that should be a pretty decent middling price.
Yeah, and I just like that this is second off the layoff. I like that off a pretty decent layoff, the horse ran solid. My slight concern with this one and why I prefer the other Gargan and why I do have this one in third is I'm just a little worried because he's definitely the true closer in the field. I am a little bit nervous that maybe he would even want a little further, or that even with the setup, maybe he can't quite get there in time. I just haven't seen that same ability that the 2 has shown. But again, the setup is there. This is one I'd absolutely use in horizontals. I think this is the one out of the 2. I'm also more confident price-wise that you'll get. I think maybe you get 5-1, whereas I have a feeling that 2 might be bet down closer to 7 to 2-ish. You'll get value on both, but I also like getting Kendrick aboard. Jockey who knows the track well, and yeah, obviously again needs the setup, but I think will get it. And I think is another one that, unlike some of these others, wants every bit of extra distance that he can get.
Yeah, no, I agree, and everything points to go for Landman Friday. And again, even though he ran good last time at Delaware, this is probably where he wants to be at this claiming level, and looks to drop to get a nice win for Gargan and Kendrick Carmouche. So I agree with you completely. Pat, last horse we'll talk about is number 10. Actually, then we'll talk about one more after this for me real quick. But number 10, Kid Creasa, Linda Dixon, and Ricardo Santana. This is one to go out to the lead, albeit in a hot pace, but you think you can hold on for at least a little bit of a piece.
Yeah, I do. And I think Ricardo's going to ride this horse. I think this horse is perfect for Ricardo. Outside post has to go. And I think his races kind of compete in here. I know it was started to drop in class and hasn't won at that, but was right there in a couple of them. So yeah, I mean, I kind of reiterated what I said at the beginning when I was talking about assertiveness, but I think this horse is going to be on the lead and see how far he can take him.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if he runs the numbers that he has in the past couple, definitely hold on for a piece. Last horse I want to talk about. I want to bring up a comment here. Robert Dennison. Robert, I don't think I've seen your name before, so thank you so much for joining the show. Greatly appreciate it. So how about the 5 and the 11th? This is the only one of the lower prices that we haven't talked about. And this is Linda Rice, Irad Ortiz off the claim, as we've seen so many times before. This will be third time now on the turf, and you can argue he's running his best races on the turf. And this was a $400,000 purchase early, now claimed for $40,000. Linda Rice is not scared to, claim for 40, run for 35 if she thinks this is where the horse can do his best running. And when you see Irad hop aboard for Linda, the horse is pretty much about as live as it gets. Ran his best race at the mile distance as well, getting the mile in the 16th. Should hit the horse right between the eyes. My problem is that as of recently, the only time this horse has passed a single soul was at that mile distance on the turf at Gulfstream Park. So can he replicate it the same type of configuration? Absolutely. But again, Linda Rice, Irad Ortiz going to be bet down and should be closer to a hot pace as well. So I do completely understand. If you like Mogo, I definitely can see how this horse can win. However, the value for me is lower based on the other two horses that I talked about a lot. And Robert Dennison says, first time on here. Robert, really appreciate you joining the show, man. Greatly, greatly appreciate it. And good luck if you do play Mogo. I do like the horse that for a piece at least. However, again, I feel like you can get better value with the two other horses I've talked about in this race, at least in my opinion. I'm going 2-7-1 in race 11. Pat's going 1-2-10. Charlie's going 2-1-7. Guys, moving to the last race of the sequence. And again, it's drum roll, everyone's favorite configuration, the 5.5 furlong turf sprint for 3-year-olds, New York State breds as well. $95,000 on the allowance. Person draws a field of 10. Morning line favorite is the number 2, Not For Hire, Ricardo Santana, George Weaver, 3-1 on the morning line. Second choice, number 10, Pay the Juice, Dylan Davis, Shug McGahee at 4-1. And your third choice is shared between the number 1, Spoken Bluntly. That would have been funnier, to be honest with you. Kendrick Carmouche, Bruce Levine, 9-2. And the number 5, Courtly Banker, Katie Davis rides for Barclay Tag at the same price. Switching over to my picks, and Charlie, very based, my friend, very based, going with the number 1, Spoken Bluntly. Pat, you are going with the number 10, Pay the Juice. Charlie, I know you want to say something, as you usually do, so what's up?
Oh, all I was going to say is before we get to, I'm glad to see that your pick is, you were saying, everyone's favorite race sarcastically, but I actually will get to best bets later. I have a pretty strong opinion about my top pick here.
You're a turf sprint savant this day, for that matter. But either way, Pat, you have the horse to the outside. Pay the Juice. You get to tell us why Charlie and I are going to be wrong with the 1 and why you're going to be right with the number 10.
Yeah, this one was tough. I don't know how much I'm going to be able to prove to you guys that you're wrong, but I'll say, listen, I've been on this horse a lot. We covered Pay the Juice at Gulfstream in the winter, and what was a nice allowance optional race in January. Dream On won that race. That was a good race. Tank was in there too, obviously. Horse just has not really run that well, but has been well meant. The connections, I know August on Farm, that's Bill Parcells. This horse was something, and was working early on as something pretty good. And I think that, does obviously want the turf. I think this horse wants turf sprints, Kyle, and that's kind of where I'm getting to, where outside post has done it before and is going to be coming from off the pace. I believe. I don't know, guys. I think the numbers, you try and, kind of mix and match here with numbers, but I think this horse should be 4-1, rightfully so. And at a square price, I'll take one more chance, or as we like to say, divorce papers filed.
Sure. Yeah, that's exactly right, Charlie. I mean, we have this horse in there. This horse can definitely at least catch a piece. I agree with Pat that probably turf sprinting is what this horse wants to do and has run the best races, in my opinion, although not the best numbers. Again, just a matter of I don't know if the setup's going to be there to have this horse come running to have this horse be basically in the back and come running late.
Yeah, and that'll go into the one which we can get to in a moment. But the other concern for me is, while I do agree with Pat, I mean, this is a horse who, nearly won on debut, lost out on Bale, who went on to be a really nice turf sprinter. And then obviously they tried to get on the turf again in Saratoga, and I think either we covered it or maybe I did a publish. I remember covering that race at Saratoga that scratched onto the dirt where he won as a big favorite. My slight thing is, while I think he wants sprinting, the weird thing is I feel like the type of sprinters he likes is the thing that they're famous for in New York, which is where they do the 6 furlong sprint races. I feel like that might be a little better for him. Now, I know it's 5.5 and it shouldn't seem like a big difference. I'm just worried that half furlong could make a difference, which is why I have him underneath, where I do feel like Dylan's going to have him flying late. I just have a feeling it's going to be one of those where you're just going to be like, damn, he couldn't quite get there. No, because it's a turf sprint, I'd use him in horizontals because these races are wide open. I just feel like there's question marks. He's obviously well-meant. He hasn't really run bad either. It's just been disappointing. I mean, like you look, he has a first and 3/3 and 7 tries. It's not like he's been running dud after dud. And like you said, Kyle, clearly his best efforts are on turf. It's just for the price you're going to get, I don't want to find out with him on top, but I definitely think he at the least will get a piece in this race. But
I agree. Yeah, sorry, go for it.
Going into spoken bluntly, I mean, putting it bluntly, play on words. I just love this horse here, and I think on numbers is the horse to beat, and I'm a little surprised at the price we're getting. I understand, it's not the biggest connections, but for a lot of these, like not for hire that are coming out of the same race, when I watch that replay, now, yes, I put Courtly Banker reluctantly in third because I had to put someone there, but visually to me, I didn't like that race at all. I get that it was a fast time, but I also think the track was playing fast because when I watched, it looked like all of the ones that are coming out of that race besides the winner were sort of just like running in quicksand. None of them really made up any ground. They all sort of ran in place. And so I wanted to get a fresh face, and that's where Spoken Bluntly comes in. This is one who, off of one of the boss man's favorite angles, off a Zero Byron Gulfstream where the horse was eased in the stretch and didn't lift a hoof, then comes back and runs at 83. Now, I understand they didn't go that fast. It says cold numbers, but still, to go 21 and change for 6 furlongs is not walking, and to go almost 44 flat, I would argue, yeah, I'm sure maybe the track was playing a little fast on that day, but that still isn't walking by any means. And this one still had plenty left over in the tank. Now, obviously, cutting back to 5.5, maybe he doesn't get the lead, but I do think he's fast enough, and Kendrick will know after riding him and that victory, as well as when he broke his maiden in what were his 2 best efforts, that he'll make sure to have this one up close enough. And I know he'll have plenty in the tank, that I just feel like if he's on the rail, saving all the ground and is sitting close, I just think he's going to end up going right by, and either if they don't go fast enough, he'll wire him, or if they do, he'll sit right by in the first flight and then just blow by him, turn and throw.
Yeah, no, I agree with you completely, and I would love if this horse was on the lead, because although there are a couple others that have been on the lead, I don't think there's really anyone, if he can bring it to this 5.5 furlong distance, I don't think there's really any that are as fast as him. And in a race where, a very rare turf strain where there's not a whole lot of speed, I would love if Spoken Bluntly can get to the lead. Kendrick Carmouche is usually really good, very aggressive rider that can get out to lead in these types of races. So I agree completely. Really quick, I'll talk about Not for Hire, and then Pat will let you talk about the 6. Then we'll go to best bets. Not for Hire is a horse, again, Ricardo Santana having a fantastic meet, hops aboard. This is one I feel like that if the 1 does go, can sit right off of the 1 and will have first run on a lot of other horses. And I feel like that could be the recipe for success in this race. Even though he didn't run a really that good of a race last time out, he has numbers that fit in this spot, and especially the race before that at Aqueduct running that 78, although that's kind of a little bit of an outlier on the page. But if he gets the type of trip I think he will, he definitely could be tough in there. Last horse we'll talk about, Pat, then we'll move on, is Bustin' Away. And this is a horse that, for connections that not a whole lot of people know, and Jim already took my thunder, so I guess I'll go to him. Pat is sharp to have the number 6 Bustin' Away on his ticket. Ferrara is the leading trainer at Finger Lakes, as well as Koa is the top rider there. They don't have to come to Saratoga, but when they do, they have a horse that is live. And obviously, Pat, this is going to be his second time out, or first time out since last year on the turf, but he ran very well on the turf back in 24.
Yeah, and I like horses that are forwardly placed. And like you said, Kyle, that race, back in 24 was pretty solid against a pretty stiff competition in there. Horse has been very inconsistent since then. With two performances that just weren't very good. One obviously was this summer at Saratoga. Just didn't really appreciate anything that day. But listen, I think this horse, I prefer being forward on the turf and in a turf sprint. And I think at 10-1, yes, I'll take that and put me. Make sure I'll have this horse on my pick 4 in the last leg.
Yeah, and obviously we'll show that in a second. But man, it's always tough when you have a turf sprint to close out the day. At least in my opinion, we have turf sprint savants over here in Charlie Freeman, but of course I am not one in that distinction. I'm going 1-2-10. Pat's going 10-6-2. Charlie's going 1-10-5. Charlie closing, or actually Patrick first, to close out best bets. Pat, you have the pick 4 that you mentioned at the end of that with the number 6 going in race number 9. This one you can play oodles of times, if you will. Yeah, exactly. Starting in race number 9, this will be the late pick 4. 2-8 in race number 9. I'm just going to read out, Pat, just to make sure. And this is especially relevant if Schwarzenegger does not go in this race. Number 2, Sandal Song, and the number 8 in that race, Spirit of New York. Race number 10 in the Alabama, throwing out Good Cheer in that race, going number 4, Nitrogen, and number 6, Lacara, in case she wires, singling the number 1, Assertiveness at 2-1 morning line in the turf route, and race number 12, having the number 6 on your ticket, going with your top 2 picks, Bustin' Away, and the number 10, Pay the Juice.
Yeah, so kind of a little bit of what my thinking was here is I do think that the 2 and the 8 in the first leg will go off as the first and second choice, but I couldn't really decipher which two or to single one there, especially it being a turf sprint. So I think, kind of trying to separate them, just there really wouldn't be a point. And then obviously I think I have the second and third choice in the Alabama, right? And then Assertiveness, 2-1 morning line. That should be a pretty, I would think, definitive favorite. And then in the last leg, I'm going to try and catch a price with those two. I'm going to play a little bit of a bigger ticket with a couple horses that you guys had, but I'm going to press this one up and try to hit this a couple times because I do think it'll still pay pretty decent, considering that I have, kind of borderline favorites and second and third choices. But this is a fun card. I know it's not maybe one of your more juicier Saratoga Saturdays, but it's still the big race is very cool.
Yeah, it's cool in the fact that it, like we talked about, there's so many different angles you can have, so many different ways you can go. And I think in a horizontal ticket, adding Lacara, I think is fine, who will be third choice, but I don't think you can, as Patrick, did you see on Patrick's ticket, I don't think you can use both Good Cheer and Nitrogen, because just from a value standpoint, you're doubling your ticket almost to, have a very low price in there. As a lot of people will have those horses on their tickets. So Pat, good luck with your best bets. Charlie, going to you next. Very, very quick and easy. Race number 9. This is all dependent on if Schwarzenegger goes in the in the 9th race. That's who you have singled on the front end, and then singling Good Cheer on the back end, going away from the horse from Pat and I. And the race number 12, you talked about it a lot, but the win on the number 1, I almost said smoking again, Spoken Bluntly.
Yeah, no, starting with race 9, obviously if the 1 doesn't go, I would probably change my best bet to some sort of exacta using the 2-horse Sandal Song on top. I just wouldn't play it double because, to be honest, I think when you talk about that, there's always some money taken off the top when it's the same number twice, and then also that it'll be, if the 1 scratches 2 heavy favorites in Sandal Song into Good Cheer, I just don't think it's worth the risk at that point. I'd rather do some sort of exactas with Sandal Song on top. But if they do stay in there, I'm going to take a chance. I do love that 2 in there, but I think this 1 horse for Wesley Ward Schwarzenegger could be really, really special. Then going into Good Cheer again, I'm just hoping this is the one who has the best form on dirt. I'm trusting that the last race you can draw a line through, and that if any horse in this field wants a mile or the 4th the most, it's going to be Good Cheer. I'm just going to hope that, Louis keeps her close enough that when they're turning for home and Nitrogen and Lacara are, gasping for air on that turn and need the race to be over, that she can roll by. And then, Spoken Bluntly, I won't go into because we just covered the race. But again, I just think either wires the field or sits close enough to go by. And if I could get 6-1, that would be a dream. And who I think, even though it is a turf sprint, you could argue is one of the more likely winners in my eyes with how I think the race turns out.
I mean, obviously I have the horse on top. I agree with you completely. And while probably won't be betting turf sprints as it's against my newfound, way of life, I do completely understand and will be cheering that horse on all the way to home. So good luck, Charlie, with your best bets. And I have a confession to make. I did pull a Charlie. I did. There's a lot of turf sprints in here and a lot of garbage that I didn't like. I had to go searching outside of the late pick 5 for a horse, and I landed on the race number 5, a win on the number 6, Zverev. It's a claim off of Cherie DeVaux, not on to Cherie DeVaux, off of Cherie DeVaux to Mike Maker. I wanted this horse to go longer for a long time since Cherie has had this horse. Ran very well last time at a mile and a 16th and a 40 claimer. This is now going to be an optional 50 claimer. While in for the tag, Mike Maker's not afraid to run this horse where he thinks that he can win. This is Oscar Performance out of a Thunder Gulch mare. Last time out ran by far the best race he's run, and now he gets that extra distance I've been hoping for. Irad Ortiz picks up this mount as well. 3-1 on the morning line, second choice in that race. In race number 5, a win on number 6, Zverev. And in race number 10, guys, I'm going to single nitrogen. I'm going to try and beat the morning line favorite, the number 1, Assertiveness, with the 2 horses that I liked in that race being the number 2, Charlie and I's top pick, Dakota Country, and the number 7, Landman Friday. And no matter what, I'm going to get a good price in those doubles because I'm going to try and beat a decently heavy favorite in the 11th race. Guys, thank you guys all so much for joining the show. We greatly appreciate it. Again, we love covering Saratoga and the fact that, the King's Plate this weekend, which you guys should tune in for tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern, with Picks and Ponies covering the Canadian Kentucky Derby, if you will, with the $1 million King's Plate and that whole card. It's a fantastic card every single year, so tune in for that. And tomorrow night at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, tune in to Pacific Horseplayers, where a guest, a special appearance from yours truly, will be talking about the Late Pick 5 at Del Mar on Saturday with their fantastic races on Saturday, which I believe includes another grade 1 out on the West Coast. But for my co-hosts, Charlie Freeman and Patrick Kunsel, this has been your host, Kyle Roscoe, in episode 143 of Bettin N Boozin on the HHH Racing Podcast, covering the grade 1 Alabama Stakes Day Late Pick 5 at Saratoga for Saturday, August 16th. And until next time, everyone, crush those bets, win those photos, and stay safe, everyone. We'll see you in the next one. Have a good night.